This is episode number 5 of DTY Talks, and we're talking to fitness expert, cycling instructor, and nutritionist Kaitlyn Wozniak about her journey overcoming an eating disorder and how she's helping women reach their full wellness potential.
Kaitlyn.
Hey, Kaitlyn, this is Kayana.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, and yourself?
I'm good. Happy Friday.
Likewise. So welcome, Kaitlyn. Can you introduce yourself to us?
Sure, yeah. My name is Kaitlyn Wozniak, and I am a fitness professional. I am a personal trainer, a nutrition coach, and I also teach group fitness for Equinox Fitness Clubs. I have been doing this for about 3.5 years now. It feels like a blink of an eye and a eternity all in one. But yeah, my journey started a few years ago, but I think it started much, much further back, as you could probably see with, where the way my life path has kind of played out.
And, I want to jump right into it. I did, like I said before, I did a little bit of reading up on you. Didn't want to kind of overwhelm myself because you have a wonderful story that I'm pretty sure you'd like to share. One thing I noticed on just looking at your social media, and we'll get into giving out the social media handles a little bit later. I'm pretty sure people need to follow that. But you do a really, really great job of promoting body positivity. But someone might look at you and say, hey, you have a great body. So, how is enforcing body positivity? How's that been a part of your personal story? And what do you want, both men and women to take away and gain from your personal experience?
Right. And it's funny. I think beauty and the perfect body are such a social construct and something that we've formulated over the years. And I think every generation kind of has their own idea of what is the perfect body. And for me, especially in fitness, I competed in pageants for years. I've never really fit into the mold of what was to be in either of those forums to be the perfect body. And so it is funny because people do look and say, well, I want to look like her or I want to look like him. But there's always going to be someone else out there saying you're not good enough, right? And so my goal was to set out and be the healthiest version of myself so that I could then have the confidence and the mental health, the emotional health, the physical health to present an image to other people and say, I am living my best life. I'm the healthiest me that I can be, and that's what counts. And I'm so glad that you asked about men, too, because a big chunk of the work that I do and my biggest passion in life is promoting eating disorder awareness. And what most people don't know is that men do suffer from eating disorders just as much as women do. I've spoken at many eating disorder conferences and at treatment centers, and there's always men and boys even in attendance. So it's important to not ignore that population.
When you say eating disorders, can you describe that for us? Because I think sometimes we get a little confused about what is an eating disorder. I think we have this idea that it's just, a person starving themselves or, a person overeating, but it could be something else. It could be a little bit more than that.
Definitely. So the world of eating disorders has changed so much over time, and it used to be you're either anorexic or bulimic, and now there's even a whole different diagnosis of eating disorders not otherwise specified, often referred to as EDNOS. I was hospitalized with my eating disorder for kind of a mix of anorexia nervosa and also an exercise addiction. So it manifests in many different ways. I also think, even going back to the original question, it's important to remember that just because someone looks healthy does not mean that they are. Just because someone's very thin doesn't mean that they are unhealthy. And just because someone's a little curvier than, that ideal of beauty that we project into our society does not mean that they are unhealthy. Like if you follow Ashley Graham, who is a phenomenal supermodel who's considered to be plus size, she's super fit. On her entire Instagram page, there's always videos of her working out. And so it's just, the image that people see of someone's body doesn't mean that you can't view health and unhealth just by looking at the physical body. It's so much of it is mental too. So understanding that eating disorders are on a huge spectrum among the diagnosis, but also it's not just the behaviors that we see outwardly, but also mentally and emotionally too.
And I'm so glad that you said that. That is specifically exactly why I used the word in the first question, perfect, because I wanted you to do just what you did, just like go into kind of dissecting that word, because we use it so loosely just when we're referring to someone we might want to look like. And, so I'm glad you really tackled that. And going a little bit, you brought up Ashley Graham, and there are a few others. I know Gina Rodriguez suffers from hypothyroidism, where, your thyroid is underactive, and it can contribute to it making it harder for you to lose weight, or just, let me say, not lose weight, lose fat, or get in shape, in the shape that you might want to get into. But let's jump into some of those misconceptions that women have about fitness, because we do want to, and I know I suffer from this myself, in trying to achieve a certain look. Some of us avoid.
I'm ready for it.
Wonderful, wonderful. But, some of us avoid, resistance, or especially weight training.
Right.
How should we, or how do you think, in your opinion, we should approach fitness? And if at all, does it differ from that of men?
So yes and no, right? Like, I believe that we all need to find a way to move that works for us, and not just in the sense of what provides physical results, but what also makes us happy to do it. I was at a conference once. It was the National Eating Disorder Association conference, and a woman did an outbreak session on fitness and how to re-enter the world of fitness in recovery from an eating disorder. And she said something that stuck with me, and I'll never forget it. She said, you need to find a way to move that moves you. And I thought that was so profound, because it's often the case that people approach fitness as a chore, or it's an obligation, or it's something we have to do. And I think first and foremost, it should always be, what makes you excited to go to the gym, or the boxing studio, or the cycling studio, or the ballet studio, whatever it is, right? Because we all have something different that makes us happy to move. And movement in and of itself is so personal to all of us. From there's plenty of differences between men and women, but I don't think women should ever be afraid of weight training, resistance training. I'm a big fan of kind of mixing heavy lifting with more circuit training, with cardio, lighter weight training. It all depends on my mood, my day, and what my body needs. And at the end of the day, every single one of those is going to develop your strength. It's going to help benefit your joint health, your cardiovascular health. I wish that I could say you have to do this one thing, but in my heart, I believe that we should be open to many different methods of movement, right? Start with the one that really speaks to your heart and your soul, and then once you get comfortable in a fitness setting, then start expanding your horizons. On the topic of differences between men and women, there's a phenomenal book. It's called Roar. So a woman who wrote this, she's a PhD. It's awesome, and it's about the physiology in women and the way that we train. And there are many differences, right? Like, women don't have the testosterone makeup that men do that's going to put on really bulky muscles. And that's 99% of the time what women are concerned about. I am a cycle instructor, and I'm always cueing resistance on the bike. And it's often the case that I look out and there's women who just stare at me like, my legs are going to get too big, right? And I'm like, well, on a comical side, I'm like, do you want your butt to look good or no? And the fact of the matter is that that's not what's going to happen. You're just going to get strong. You're going to develop muscle that's going to burn fat, right? And that's really essentially the difference there.
That's a really good way of putting it. I've heard that myself. I'm not a trainer at all, but just in reading a lot about fitness and training and trying different things, that seems to be one that's being debunked a lot lately by male and female trainers, is that women need to lift and not be afraid to pack on, you know, a little bit more than 2 or 3 pound weights or those little
right.
weights.
Oh my gosh. You know, I said in my class one day, and it kind of just flew out of my mouth. I was like, you know, there's never been a 6-pack that was developed by 2-pound dumbbells. Like, it just ain't going to happen. It's not, you know, and it's true and it's funny, and people respond to humor in a fitness setting because it's uncomfortable already, right? And to make people laugh and make them feel like they can kind of let loose in the fitness world, I think that's what's kind of helped a lot of the people that I know and myself personally, like, speak to members and our clients, because a lot of times it is scary. It's a scary world.
And that's, you know, just to kind of jump on that a little bit, you mentioned it is a little bit intimidating. One of the things you brought up a few seconds ago was switching up your workouts. You mentioned the interval training. Can you tell us a little bit about mixing up interval? Do you do interval one day and that's just what it is for that day, and then weight training, or do you mix it up throughout the day?
So for me personally right now, it's a little harder on my schedule, and I like to be as transparent and authentic as I can be. My personal workouts right now are kind of stuck in a little bit of a rut, and it makes me a little stir crazy because I am a cycle instructor. I'm also planning a wedding, and I'm also a personal trainer and nutrition coach. I have a lot going on, so I just have to fit in what I can sometimes to make sure I'm moving. I try to do circuit training, a mixture of cardio and strength training, athletic conditioning, if you will, about 3 days a week, and I probably cycle twice a week. And I try to prioritize stretching and mobility work on my own time. And that's just really because that's what I can handle right now in my personal life. What I was saying earlier, I think, is something I really do stand by. In the ideal scenario, you find the thing that really moves you and that you thrive in. Right, for me, that was cycling from the get-go. I used to cycle a lot more than I do now. And then once I got comfortable reintroducing fitness to my life, then I started expanding my horizons. I would take a boxing class, or I'd go to a yoga class. So I would start removing, cycle a couple days from my week and replacing it with something new and trying out different stuff, because your body will adapt to an exercise only for so long. And after a while, it kind of gets used to it. There's only so much you can do on a stationary bike, right? So I try to remind people, expand your horizons, get uncomfortable now that you're used to fitness again. Put yourself in a new scenario and try something else, because for all you know, you might love it. And if you hate it, guess what? You don't have to go back. There's plenty of other offerings out there.
Tell me about cycling. Again, we get in our heads when we don't know something, and I'm one that I have no idea. I know what a cycle is, what a bicycle is. But as far as what to expect from a cycling class or cycling session, what is it? Is it steady state? Is it interval? Is it, what is it?
What's cool now is that the world of cycling is so expansive. I mean, when cycling first started out as spinning, it started in a garage with some bikes that were put on like some pedestals that couldn't go anywhere, and it was more like riding like if the weather was bad and you couldn't hit the road and the trails, all to cadence, watts, RPMs. Now there's rhythmic riding, which is what I love. You ride strictly to the beat of the music. It's like dancing on a bike. There are people there, and if you go to a gym, you'll probably find different offerings on different varieties of classes. Some instructors do a Tabata cycling class. Some people do studio cycle. There's plenty of interval training on bikes. And the premise, there are plenty of people out there who talk a lot of, trash talk other ways that people enjoy riding, because the purity of cycling to watts and RPMs to cadence, it's not like that anymore. But remember, I really firmly stand by, if we're getting people to move and they love it and they're happy, and for 45 minutes to an hour of their day they're smiling and they don't have to worry about the stress of their life, we should just be happy that that's out there for people. So cycling, yeah, it's very diverse now, and you can pretty much find a cycling class for anything you are looking for, and anything that really, motivates you. I will say what you can expect is a lot of sweat. Your butt might be sore for the first few classes, and it's going to be a butt-kicking workout, but for me, it is what saved my life.
Okay, and how does that help you find balance? Because you mentioned having an eating disorder and now, recovering or I'm not sure the correct terminology. Is it recovering or is it over? I don't know. How do you differentiate having it versus not?
Such a fair question, and I'm glad you asked, because for me personally, I have been in a place of being recovered from my eating disorder for several years now. However, step back several years ago, I was in recovery from my eating disorder. I was still struggling really much with the desire to act on disordered eating behaviors. And but now I am in just such a different space where I know what my body needs. I'm very intuitive with my body and my movement. But there's definitely variation in those two terms. And how cycling created balance in my life, I think I noted previously that part of my diagnosis was compulsive exercise, and sometimes that's considered exercise bulimia. But for me, what that meant in the grips of my eating disorder was I would pound gym equipment and just watch the calorie count instead of listening to my body or saying, hey, I'm going to see if I can manage to run 5 miles today. It was just my eye was on the calorie count. I didn't want to be there. I was miserable. I didn't exercise because I appreciated my body. I was exercising because I hated it. And so once I got out of treatment, I went to college. I found an indoor cycling studio. And for the first time, I was on a bike that didn't have numbers on it. And that was the very first moment I was able to say, wow, fitness doesn't have to be about counting calories. It doesn't have to be about numbers at all. We can just free our minds and just feel our bodies be strong.
Wow, that actually is really powerful. And the funny thing is it kind of resonates with me because I just started that last week. Like I'm crazy about exercising. I've never been diagnosed with any eating disorder or any exercise bulimia, as you called it. But for the first time, I got on, my stationary bike here because I love weightlifting and all of that great stuff. But for cardio, I hate cardio. And so for cardio, I will do stationary bike sometimes, interval. And for the first time, I said, I'm just going to look at the timing of it. I know I'm going to spend a half an hour on this or 25 minutes on this. I'm not going to switch over to that calorie counter. This is just last week. So it's amazing that you said that, and I've been sticking to it. I've been riding 6 days a week or five or 6 days a week for about 20, 25 minutes. But
that's awesome.
The goal was to not look at the calorie
and that
portion
in and of itself is amazing, right? Because that's a win on your end. And I think everybody deserves that. And it's not even like everybody needs to do it. Everyone deserves that. Right, to not be so caught up in the other stuff, because your body is going to take care of itself as long as you're fueling it right and moving it well. So to kind of switch over to how you help people, because everything that you've told me up to this point has prepared you to be like a person that people should listen to. So when you approach new clients when it comes to whether it's fitness or helping them with nutrition, how do you approach actually tangibly and intangibly, like whether it's talking to them or whether it's actually giving them a form to fill out? How do you approach new clients and helping tailor fitness and nutrition? Well, I think there are a couple of key things that jump into my mind, because I think every person is different and unique, and that is first and foremost the way I go into any new client, that they're not the same as the person I saw that morning or that I'm going to that evening or somebody that I trained earlier in the week. They're completely themselves, and I need to tailor my approach uniquely. And from there, again, I truly believe that humor helps especially when it's a very initial session, right? Like some people would call it an intake or whatever you want. People are scared. They're nervous. People are afraid of change. People are afraid of committing to that big of a step. So I try to just make everyone feel comfortable and let guards down, whether it means I have to share my own personal story and get them to know that I'm relatable, crack some jokes, whatever it may be, right? But the key is to always make sure they know that I'm on their side, I'm on their team. The other thing, too, is I will say I have a few basics that I share with everyone. If it's a personal training client, it's always about, reinforcing that movement. It should never be obsessive. I'm not going to train them more than they need to be trained, because I've had people say, well, I want you to train me 5 days a week. And I'm like, you don't need that, right? Like, you have enough going on. That's too much. Or if it's a nutrition client, for instance, I have a few basic nutrition guidelines that I share with everyone. I firmly believe that we need a nice balance of lean protein, complex carbs, and healthy fats throughout our day. And, that's a big staple among all of my clients. But there might be somebody who has a history with an eating disorder where the experience then becomes a little bit more emotional and mental and spiritual, as opposed to somebody who's just like, hey, I just don't understand nutrition. Can you educate me for a little while, right? And then it's like, okay, this is what a protein is. So everyone's different, and I think that's what is the most important thing to stress there, is that what I believe in my heart is that every person is unique. All of our stories are unique, and they all need to be approached personally to the individual client.
And, the next question just has to do with just a little bit more about the foods. And do you even recommend, I guess I should ask, supplements to beginners? Or if you do, what kinds are they? I'm pretty sure it would be big kinds.
Loaded question. No, I'm not a huge fan of supplements. I do believe that we should take vitamins, but I think that it's important to separate the two, because a lot of people think supplements and they think going to GNC and buying some protein powder or whatever. I think, I encourage my clients to take, fish oil, calcium, vitamins that may be lacking from their general nutrition, especially if they're vegetarian or vegan. I don't like supplements, like I mentioned before, like the GNC stuff. I don't recommend. I don't like manufactured protein, so I don't eat or take in protein powder. If I'm in a pinch and it's a day when I just had a tough workout, I forgot to pack something, and I'm stuck at work at the cafe, I might get a smoothie with vegan protein powder and try to do what I can with what I'm given. But for the most part, yeah, and especially for a beginner, I think all that stuff is so unnecessary. It has to be approached, little by little and little steps. Usually for a beginner, the basics are like, let's watch your form if it's a client, a personal training client, and what are you eating now? What are your non-negotiables, right? I always ask that question. If it's a nutrition client, I know me personally, I'm never giving up tacos and guacamole. It's just not happening, right? Like, and that's important. You can't address a brand new nutrition client and be like, well, you have to cut out all of your favorite things because it's not going to work. So supplements are usually like the very last thing I even attempt to address unless they ask out of curiosity.
Yeah, we actually just did a blog series. It was a 2-parter on supplements, and it was called Supplements Are Not Substitutes. So there is no substitute for whole food, straight from nature as possible, as close to nature as possible. And we looked at protein powders. We looked at protein powders, and we looked at meal replacements in the first episode, the first blog. And then we looked at a few others that people like to take for weight loss or weight gain. And we recommended other things instead of those. But I was vegan for about a year, which was like all of last year. But I noticed my hair I have really big, curly, like huge hair. I've always had really thick hair, and it started to fall out. So, so I wasn't taking enough protein. even though I do take hemp protein, I just wasn't getting enough. I don't think I was getting enough protein, probably not enough B vitamins and things like that. So there are little supplements that I have included into the diet, and I'm no longer vegan. I do eat eggs and fish, but that's probably about it. So, just kind of tinkering with that a little bit. And I bring up that story because are there any specific things? You hear a lot of noise about, oh, if you do low carb, then you'll lose weight, or, those kind of things that are just out there. So from a beginner or someone who knows nothing, what are there any things that people or that you would suggest to people to add or eliminate from their routine? Not necessarily their diet, but just maybe things that they're doing under eating. So it's just as far as weight management and health, because we don't want to leave out health.
So I would start on the topic of things to add. I would say finding something that's completely self-care focused, whether it's yoga, meditation, reading, taking time to read if you're a book lover. I know this one comes up a lot. It's so cliche. If you're a female, going and get your nails done, right? Something that's so you, that it just takes time. Giving yourself, even if it's 45 minutes to an hour of your week, right? Finding that time for you is really important. Self-care is key. I would also say adding sleep. None of us get enough sleep, so that's critical. That's something that's been a big goal of mine recently. In addition to things to add, I would say if you're not active, finding something that allows you to move. If you find a friend and you guys just want to take a walk, if you have a dog, prioritize walking your dog. It can start so simple. Even if you get a yoga DVD and you do some yoga when you wake up in the morning. It doesn't have to be super strenuous. You don't have to jump right in the saddle in a crazy cycling class. Start small and work your way in there, and just make sure that you're taking that time to take care of yourself. On the note of things to eliminate, I could go on a huge tangent, but I think the easiest ones to start with, eliminating processed foods, added sugars, definitely stress. Any way that you can eliminate stress is key, and I think that goes back to what I first mentioned in the self-care on that note, because those kind of go hand in hand. There's a term that I really like to use with my clients called crowding out, and in the way we approach crowding out nutrition is adding more fibrous vegetables, adding more water, adding more fruits and veggies, things that are more health-focused so that you're not as tempted to go for the soda or the pancakes, right? Whatever it is, the dessert after dinner that's loaded in added sugars. Not that those things are off limits, but you're then crowding out. It's not a restriction. You're filling your body and your soul with the good stuff, and you're not as tempted and hungry for the others. And so that can really be applied in other ways, not just in food, but also in our day-to-day lives. By adding more self-care, you're then crowding out the stress. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does. And the funny thing is I'm listening, and I think 5 of those 6 tips that you just gave we covered in, because I do the blog posts for doctors to use. So it's I'm not a nutritionist, but it requires diligent research in order to not misspeak. So I'm coming from a place as a writer, not so much a place as I'm certified in anything. But that was one of the tips that I gave for one of the blog posts on supplements. I didn't use the term crowding out. I really like that, but it really was as opposed to telling people what they can't do or can't have. Try to do more of what's good for you, and then there really won't be that much room left for the bad things, so to speak.
Right.
So I love the fact that
I think on a note, because it's important not just to praise you and what you're doing, but also so other people out there listening know it is so important. We're in a world where we read headlines, and that's really it, right? And then we jump to conclusions and make assumptions of things. It's so important to be a critical consumer, right? Because your job is to educate the public, and you are doing your job by doing your research. You don't have to be certified because there is good information out there. You're taking the time to ask questions and critical questions, and other people, I really wish for us as a society to do more like in-depth reading of things. And if we don't know something, ask the question to the right people. It makes a world of a difference.
That is so true. So it's just pretty cool listening to everything you're saying, because a lot of the things that you're mentioning, it kind of makes me feel good that they came up in some of the things that we've written about.
Yeah.
So it's
hey,
like, yes.
There's so much good information out there now. It's true.
So this may be a kind of a weird question, but I like to ask, this is always one I like to throw in to our experts. In your opinion, what is the most overrated exercise or workout or fitness technique? And I ask that because so many things become in vogue. We did a blog post on sugar, and I mentioned that in the 70s there was this, let's eliminate fat from everything, and they were adding sugar and everything because they had an agenda. They wanted you to buy the bubbly sodas and those things, and that good fat that was in there they were taking out, and they villainized butter and so on and so forth. So today there could be something like that in fitness that we may look back on in 10 years and realize that it's really not that beneficial. Like you really didn't need to do, X, Y, and Z in 2017, but you were doing it because they told you to. So just as an expert, does anything jump out to you as a technique or something that people are doing now that's popular that's like, you probably really don't need to do that? This is overrated.
Yeah. So I'm sure there's something out there that may not be coming to mind, but what is really jumping out at me when you ask the question is honestly overtraining. And it's not that it's glorified or that it's, actually in some ways it is. It's not that it's out there in the media like you have to overtrain to be successful, but it's a mentality that people have assumed where people are doing 2-a-days at the gym and they're not professional athletes. Or, it's a race to be the best, the most physically fit, and in the process, people are not doing the best for their bodies. I also think the nature of fitness classes these days is to be the hardest class there is. And I say that, and in many ways we're all guilty of it because who knows what our clients and our members are coming to, right? Like one of my classes could be the only class that someone's coming to, and you have to give them that workout that they need. However, it also takes the person themselves to kind of filter out, okay, maybe I don't need 4 days in a row of a really high-intensity workout, right? And this is beyond beginners. This is even advanced people in a fitness setting who just want to go crazy in the gym all the time because they think that that's what's going to get them the results. But what's been proven is that proper recovery time, sleep, regeneration, taking care of our bodies in ways other than going crazy in a group fitness class or in a training session, those regeneration moments are what really bring about the results. So I would say, and I think it's more important to speak on the overtraining concept than anything because it needs to be addressed. I'm sure there are people out there who are in that circumstance who think that they have to work out 7 days a week to lose weight or to get fit, when really recovery and rest days are so important. So I would really love to highlight that more than anything.
Ooh, that's actually a really awesome tip, I think. So tell us about your business, The Well Warrior, and what motivated you to get into this space. So what does your vision entail, and as you continue to grow your business, where do you see it going?
Sure. So The Well Warrior started, and it's still such a work in progress. It's still working out the kinks, and it has room to grow and build and develop. I have no idea what I see for it because it's so fresh and new to me. But last year I got my certification as a holistic nutrition coach, and I wanted to create something in the market for people, women specifically, who need help figuring out movement and food and how to navigate a world that's really confusing. And so I offer nutrition coaching sessions, personal training sessions, almost on the verge of a life coach at times, because I get really, my clients and I form really great relationships and bonds over time. But really the gist of it is to help people navigate a really confusing world and to learn that food doesn't have to be a fear movement, doesn't have to be scary, and that we can find the ways to work out and to eat right that work for each individual person. And really the business itself is just, I don't want to set crazy expectations because I want whatever happens with it to be so organic and natural. I don't want to put any limits on it either in that regard. I want it to just be accessible for women who really need my help.
When you mentioned the life coaching aspect of it, and so do you have any plans for, and it could be like distant plans, not necessarily in the next 5 weeks, but it could be in the next 5 years. So this is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is like a fusion between healthy eating and overall wellness.
Yeah.
So are there books in place, or at least e-books, we can get our hands on and things like that we...
So I have wanted to write a book about my recovery journey for years, and it's been tough because life moves at the speed of light, and I've found that I've just gotten so busy that I don't have the space and the time to sit down and put pen to paper or type out my story. And so I think that's also part of the appeal to me of the Well Warrior was that I can speak my story to people one-on-one and be of assistance and good help to people on an individual basis if I wasn't able to write.
Right.
Hopefully over time my schedule will chill out, maybe post-wedding, and I'll be able to do that and make that dream come true. I would love to write a book. I also think that what's next up on my to-do list is to get my life coaching certification. I would really love to step into that role as well, because right now the life coaching aspect of what I do is more kind of in jest, because my clients do reach out to me for more than food and nutrition and fitness tips at times, because they become like family and friends. But I love the idea of life coaching. I think it's so powerful and helpful, and I would love to expand my horizons and be able to help out more people. So, yeah, I think you're spot on.
It just sounds like that's what it would be.
I would love it.
Awesome.
I might need a ghostwriter.
So this is just the final round of questions. They're not even really questions. It's just like, tell us a little bit about you. Who have we been listening to for the last half an hour, 40 minutes? Where are you from? Where are you now? Where are you going? That kind of thing.
Sure thing.
Yeah.
So I am originally from Baltimore, Maryland. I grew up in Baltimore. I moved to D.C. in 2009. I went to college at American University. My undergrad degree is in psychology. And I worked in mental health actually for a little while post-grad, and I realized I was actually also at the time working for a cycling studio. And it dawned on me that I could really put the two passions together, because fitness is so mental. And from there, I decided to get my personal training certification. I started at Equinox not long after that, and I really have been in that same spot, but growing in that spot ever since. So I've been in D.C. since 2009. I'm at Equinox full-time. I also balance my own external work. And I would love to say that I have a specific plan in mind, but there are so many aspects of what I do that I love and I'm equally as passionate about that I'm just right now at a point where I'm so open to whatever the universe is bringing my way, and whatever comes next, as long as it fits, my journey and what I love to be completely authentic and transparent with things. And so if something doesn't fit for me, if something doesn't sit right in my heart, it's something that I always will turn down. But I think I've gotten very in tune with my mind and my body, and I think I have a pretty good, I can usually read situations pretty well. So I think, again, I'm just saying open to things that are coming, and if it's the right move, that's where I'll go.
Awesome. So where can we learn more? Do you have any, like a website or social media or all of that? And public appearances, do you do any of that kind of stuff?
I do. So I used to do a lot more as Miss DC. I have since retired my crown and sash.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
no longer competing in pageants. But I've spoken at different treatment centers over the past couple of years for eating disorder treatment centers. My website is thewellwarrior.com. So for anybody interested in nutrition services or personal training, you can find me there. I'm on Instagram at Kaitlyn Dineh, KaitlynDinneh, also at The Well Warrior. Facebook is both of those as well. So I am pretty well connected online. And as far as public appearances go, I've spoken at many different treatment centers, at different colleges and universities. I really like to reach out to my target audience, the people who need my services and could use a little bit of hope in their recovery journey.
And you just, that was the last question. You just slipped in Miss DC and kept going. And like, how do you just say that and then it's not in the last question? So, I mean, if you don't mind, like a second or two, and just kind of tell us about that experience.
Yeah, no, it's so I competed all throughout my childhood in pageants, toddlers and tiara style, and I took several years off. I went back. I competed for Miss Maryland Teen USA for several years. I competed at Miss Maryland USA, Miss District of Columbia USA. And this also just goes right back to our original question, right? Like what people's idea of beauty and the perfect body is. All throughout competing, I had people tell me, well, you're not thin enough. You're not tall enough. You're not pretty enough. And it wasn't until I competed for the United States system, Miss U.S. International system. I won the title of Miss District of Columbia, U.S. International, and I made top 10 at Miss United States International. And, I've since laid down the idea of competing because I think it wasn't the most healthy for me. And not that I was acting on behaviors, but I think mentally and emotionally that takes its toll. And there's plenty of good that came out of it. It lined me up for many phenomenal opportunities. Some of my best friends came out of pageants. But at the same time, I think it's important for all of us to recognize when we need to step away from the other stuff that's toxic and constantly hearing, well, you're not thin enough, you're not tall enough, you're not pretty enough, your skin's bad, right? Like any and all of it, I've heard it. And so that to me was just like, you know what, I'm good in my heart. I could live the rest of my life without a pageant title and just take away the good before it gets too bad.
That's incredible.
Okay.
Did you have any other questions for me about this or anything?
No, you were so easy to talk to. This was awesome, and I'm more than happy to help in the future too if you ever need me again.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And this has been great for us. We just started this series in February, and we're doing one a month right now. We may increase it at some point, but right now one a month seems to be more than enough. Awesome. And yeah, so the whole thing has just been really cool, getting the chance to speak with people like yourself. So thank you again, and look forward to working with you again soon.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks so much. Have a great weekend.
All right, you too.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.